Welcome to That's a Hard No, the podcast about learning to say no and set boundaries to live our best lives. I'm your host, Heather Drago. You may think, because of this podcast, that I'm a boundary setting expert, but I'm not. I'm an expert at struggling to set boundaries. But you know what? I'm working on it, and it is getting easier. Follow along with me as I learn from fellow strugglers and experts so that you too can start saying no without feeling fear, guilt, or FOMO.
You don't know where to go. Unfriendly applications got you feeling low. You're not sure what to do. Weight of expectations is coming down on you. There's a phrase you should know. Tastes so much sweeter than hello. That's a hard no.
My guest today is Rachel Durci, a financial wellness coach who supports clients by building financial confidence and taking the stress out of money conversations. She specializes in couples, wedding budgeting, and providing companies with financial wellness support for their teams.
Yeah. Hi, Heather.
Rachel, thank you so much for coming on. We've been
Thank you.
talking about this forever.
Yep.
I have so many thoughts swirling in my head that I've been banking to talk to you about. But I think I'd love to start with kind of your origin story of how you got into this
Yeah.
and a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, sure. So my origin story started, as all of ours does, as a child. And so, I grew up in a home that didn't have a lot of money, the single mom. And I remember being very young, like 5 or something, and not really knowing what money was even used for, but understanding that money meant stress and anxiety. I felt a lot of that whenever those conversations came up in my family. And I grew up with that my whole entire life. And when I got into more like high school, I just started thinking I don't want to live like this when I get older. I need to find a better way to make sure that I don't feel that constant stress and anxiety over money. So I started teaching myself stuff because I figured, education is great.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And as a teenager.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was
Wow.
very, I almost want to say I was obsessed, and you'll hear a little bit more as I continue on.
So it's
because
definitely
there was,
a pain point you were trying to address.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
And
Okay.
unfortunately, I don't know about you, but I didn't learn financial wellness in high school or college.
No, and I feel like that should be like a how to balance your checkbook or your
Yeah.
checking account.
Yeah. And how to budget. And
Yeah,
anyway.
all that stuff. Yeah.
So I started learning about credit scores and reports and how to budget
Wow.
and what a credit card really means and should I use it, should I not, so I started really just learning some of the stuff, and I became very interested in it because it was impacting my daily life, and I wanted to make sure it impacted my life in a more healthier way. So I learned all those things. I taught myself, and of course, they're still learning, right? I mean, it's constant learning. But then when I got almost to be done with college, I started panicking about my school loans because my family, again, is you don't owe anybody anything ever. If you borrow 10 cents, you better give them that 10 cents back the second you have it, and better yet, just don't even borrow it to begin with. So obviously I had to take some loans out for college, but I was feeling a ton of stress and anxiety around how am I going to pay back these loans? I'm not supposed to have debt. That's what I was taught. That's really bad. And so when I got out of college, I created my first budget, I put all this stuff together, and for 3 years, really, I didn't enjoy my life. I panicked and stressed constantly about putting every single penny I had onto my loans, so I didn't do anything. I didn't go out. I didn't spend money on literally anything but my bills and my loans. So then I get to a point where my loans are paid off. Great, I'm debt free. So I have the education, I have the interest in learning more, and I have no debt. I should be great, right? I was not. Because I didn't learn the mindset around money.
You were still uncomfortable
I was still
with money.
very uncomfortable, very stressed. I had a job. Of course, I went to nonprofit, so I never made tons of money. But I had a job. I had no debt. I lived very minimally, and I had plenty of money in a bank account. But I still felt a lot of stress and anxiety around money. Up until truly in my early to mid 30s. Before my friends started actually asking me, why are you always so stressed about money? You have money, right? And I'm like, well, yeah, but that's not to spend. They're like, well, what's it for? And I'm like, well, I don't know, emergencies.
Someday.
Well, what are you going to have that's a $30,000 emergency in reality? What, so I really started really digging in and trying to understand, why am I still so panicky about money? And of course, I went back to recognize that, like, well, my whole entire life I grew up and everybody around me, mostly my mom and my grandparents, just constantly stressed about money. And it didn't matter. There was never enough. Like, it was always, no matter what you have, it's not enough. You need to constantly save more, and you need to constantly panic because you never know. It could just go away one day.
Yeah.
And so then I had to do a lot of introspection, and I had to do just a lot of my own sort of therapy work and trying to understand how to move past a lot of those thoughts. And it took me a while. I was doing it on my own, but I was able to get past that. And I still have moments, not perfect at all. There's still moments when I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I can't, we had to get a new roof on our house a few years ago. And that was,
fun.
That's
fun.
a lot.
I call that the fun money.
Yes,
sarcastically.
that was lots of fun. So I know, so the reason that I'm doing what I do now is because I know what it feels like to constantly stress about money, and I know what it feels like to feel comfortable with my money. And I want to help people move from the one place of anxiety to the next place of feeling confident. And again, it's a lifelong thing. It doesn't just like go and come super fast. But when I can help people just like take a breath and recognize that, like, wow, like, I actually feel pretty good about where I am, even if you have debt, or even if you, whatever the situation is, it doesn't matter, because you could have tons of money and still be stressed about money. You could have very little and tons of debt and be stressed about money. You could be at any place and be stressed about money. So that's the bulk of what I do in my work really is mindset, and it's helping folks get from like this place of sort of the negativity to this place with the positivity.
Yeah. Well, I can so relate with that. And I think a lot of people can. I think how you grow up impacts so much of your life. Just to share my backstory, some people may know this already, but I grew up in a home that was impacted by generations of poverty, which is often the case with those who come from poverty. So, 3, 4 generations back, people were living in poverty. And so I was raised by a single mom who was working 3 jobs, and I knew money was tight. And not only was it a tense subject, I got in trouble if we talked about it.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't even allowed to bring up the subject. And so then, fast forward to my early to mid 20s, and I'm getting married, and I'm going through the pre-Cana thing because my husband was Catholic. And we did the test, and they said, you guys are really compatible. Everything's really great, except there's this one area where you're probably going to have some conflicts. And that was about discussions about money. And he, from the beginning, I guess, his mom worked at a bank. So he was taught a lot about money management and, budgeting and all that stuff. He paid his own way through school and all that stuff. Then he married me and inherited my student loans. But anyway, they were right. That was the thing that was very stressful throughout our life together. And part of it was because I was so uncomfortable around the topic of money. I just kept avoiding it. And so because I was avoiding it, I wouldn't pay things on time. So my credit rating tanked and all this stuff. So, fast forward again, 20 plus years later. God, we've been married 27 years. What? Anyway, so many years later. And it's taken me that long to learn how to budget and pay bills on time and work at improving your credit score and becoming comfortable with talking about money and looking at how much you have. And then I started a business, right? And so what's so funny is very recently, my business coach and I were talking, and she's like, Heather, you're doing great. You're doing all the right things, but we really need to talk about the elephant in the room. You're just not comfortable with money. And I was like, but I'm doing so good. And she's like, you are, but like, just even like how I price my services and invoicing people at certain times and even just like getting the money that I've earned. Like, I'm just uncomfortable. Like, I'm sorry, it's going to cost this much.
Even though they probably knew ahead of time it was going to cost that.
And so now we're like focusing on that. And so I think it's just something, like you said, it's a lifelong learning process. It's something that impacts relationships, just generation in couples, like so many things. So that's why I was so excited to have you on, because I know for sure it's been an issue for me. And I'm guessing that a lot of folks that are listening can really relate too, because money is still an extremely taboo topic, at least in America. And it's such a shame because, and I try,
Another thing that like is sort of my goal is getting my clients comfortable with talking about money. It's not just comfortable with their own, like looking at their bank accounts and they feel great, but like
The
how comfortable are
conversation.
you asking your friend, oh, that sweater's great. How much did you pay for it? Or I just got my kitchen redone and this is how much it cost. Or, you know, I've got some debt and I'm trying to pay it off and this is how much it is. Do you have any suggestions? Like those are the things we all should be talking about because we can learn from each other and we can support each other. And when we're not talking about it, we feel very alone. And that's a lot of my clients feel like nobody would understand.
Do you think a lot of the this is a leading question. I think the reason people often don't have those conversations is they feel shame.
Yes.
So especially if they have debt, they don't want their friends to know they're in debt.
Yep.
And so they don't want to say, you know, I'd love to go out to dinner with you, but I really can't afford it
Right.
because I'm paying off this debt.
Right.
Right. And yeah, and that's come up in the relation to boundaries a ton of times because there are so many times people are invited to destination weddings or
Yeah. Yeah.
or let's go out to the theater and dinner and all this stuff and like great, I don't have $200 extra to spare. So, but people don't want to have those conversations. So
I just, and when folks say that to me, I push back and say, but how would you feel if you said that and your friend said, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you said that because I am feeling the same way and I would rather not go.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
And that happens. It does happen.
Once you
are not,
open up,
yes.
yeah.
Or how good would it feel if your friend just said, cool, that's cool. We can do something
I
else.
understand. Yeah.
As an example, I have some girlfriends, we get together every month, and things got a little tight for me at some point when I decided to start a business and quit a full-time job. And I said, can we do something other than going out to eat every month? And we went for hikes every single month, and we still do, actually.
That's
There's
great.
one coming up tomorrow. But so and that's free. It doesn't cost any of us anything other than a little bit of gas maybe to get where we're going. And they were all like, cool. Who cares? So, you know.
It's not about the thing we're spending
Yeah,
money on.
right.
It's about being together.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Thinking about like my early married life, right? And those conflicts and me being avoiding the topic and my husband kind of just taking the lead on that. Now we're much more of a partnership in that realm. Like what are some common early coupledom type issues you see come up or how do you help young couples? Or is it more the middle-aged couple that comes to you and go, okay, well, we went bankrupt and now what do we do? Like,
Yes.
tell me about that and just like households and coupledom and all that stuff.
So if there are any young couples out there, I would love to work with you because my average client really is in their 40s. And so they've been married for 10, 15 plus years and they're deep into it. And I would say similar to what you just said, like the most common thing is that they just don't talk about it. They don't even, like, I don't really even maybe know what your debt looks like, and you don't really know what mine looks like and what our bills are. We just know we pay our mortgage and we're okay. We don't feel great, but we're okay. And so there's just there's a lack of communication, and we all know that statistic that says like money is the number one reason for like breakups and arguments. And my sort of pushback to that is it's not the money, it's the lack of communication around money. And I see that time and time again. And so I actually specialize in working with couples, and I help folks feel more comfortable having those money conversations with each other. So I'll give them homework where they do it on their own and then they come together to talk about it. So it gives them like a jumping off place. It's not just like you're not just opening up all of your wounds, you know, for money. But yeah, so it's the lack of communication.
So what are some things just to start getting people comfortable thinking about talking about money? What are some first steps someone can do?
So even though I know this sounds silly, but it really is kind of going back to what I said with your friends or your partner. I mean, going back to your partner, you have decided to spend your life with this person. You need to be comfortable talking about everything with them because you've
Right.
decided to share your life. So that could be a place to start. But if you're not feeling comfortable, go to your friends and start just saying things like, hey, I just went to TJ Maxx and this sweater was on sale and only cost $20. Can you believe it? Like something as simple as that, just speaking like language where money is involved, saying $20, asking your friends how much they paid for something, especially if you are like, you know, and I do this all the time, and it's amazing how many, like, even I get some anxiety sometimes still saying it, but it's amazing how often people just respond without like being like, ew, like how dare you ask that? But like if you're getting something, if you have a mechanic, right, and you just felt like you were way overcharged for something, ask your friend, how much did you pay for your
Or
last
what's a
oil
good
change?
price for
Yeah.
X?
Right,
Yeah,
exactly. What do
yeah.
you think they should be charging me? Because we can learn from each other, and that's not, you're not divulging any personal information by asking how much you spent on that sweater or telling them how much you spent. I mean, that's not really that serious. So start small if you're really that uncomfortable and see how people respond. And there's a good chance people will respond in a very positive, non-judgmental way, and then that can just help you open up a little bit more. And it takes time. I don't recommend, going to your friends and printing out your bank account and your debt
Hey,
and
take
saying,
a look at
"Here."
this budget I came up with.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But you also you can either work with a professional or you can find that one, like whether it be your partner, your parent, your best friend, like a coworker that maybe you don't even feel that close to, but you feel like, you can sort of have those conversations and they won't judge you. Find that person who's not going to judge you and start talking about it with that person, because it will just get you more comfortable talking about it in general. Because you have to be, it's not about the other people feeling comfortable. It's about you feeling comfortable. So don't worry about what other people are thinking about. How are you feeling about it? And if you're feeling uncomfortable, you need to start small, and maybe you need to kind of get that partner that's sort of like the accountability partner, whether, again, that's a family member or a friend or whatever, and find that person that you can connect with and start talking about it. And you can be very open and just say, listen, I've noticed that I'm super uncomfortable talking about money, and I'm going to start. And do you mind if you're the person that I sort of start with? Be just open about it. Like,
Yeah.
I just feel like I need to start
Someone you
talking
trust,
about it.
someone you can be yourself with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I heard you talking about when you left college and you set this very strict budget.
Yeah.
And so, but you were miserable, right?
Correct.
And so on a podcast about boundaries, I would think when someone sees, financial wellness coach on the description, they're going to think that's what we're going to talk about. How to get, impose and stick to boundaries around money and stuff. So I wanted to share some of my stupid boundaries.
Okay.
And then let's talk about just like what's realistic and,
Okay.
So I have all these dumb self-imposed rules. Like I cannot walk into a big box store without alone. I have to have a person
Okay.
and a list.
Uh-huh.
And if I don't, I can only buy what I can carry out under my own power.
Okay.
No cart, no basket.
Okay.
Have I gotten really good at carrying things with my pinkies? Yes.
Yeah.
Do
Okay.
the workers come up to me and say, "Ma'am, would you like a basket or a cart?" And I say, "No, thanks. This is a money saving strategy,
Yeah.
right?"
Uh-huh.
That's my way of jokingly preventing myself from going in for shampoo and spending $200, right?
Mhm.
Which is
Yeah.
so easy to do.
Yeah,
They make
correct. Yep.
everybody's into the thing.
Mhm.
The other thing is, if I don't absolutely love it and I won't use it within a week, I don't buy it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Just like, do I really love this? Am I sure I'm going to wear it? Yeah. And then the other thing is just like, and this is sort of influenced by a client we have, which is in the thrift industry, is like, I try not to buy anything from fast fashion or fast
Okay.
furniture or stuff like that because of how it impacts the environment.
Right. Mhm.
And so, just having those values. And then, there's a certain money threshold. My husband and I, we don't spend over a certain amount without talking to each other.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are my kind of silly rules. Some are silly, some are not, maybe. I don't know. And I'm wondering if there are other boundaries you can talk about that people set for themselves that are maybe good, maybe bad, maybe self-destructive, not necessarily helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So take it. I'm babbling and
So, no, you're good. So I don't think any of your strategies, which we'll call them strategies, are bad or silly at all. Because first of all, what works for you? If it's not working for you, you need to stop it and find something else. So if those things are working for you, keep at it. Who cares?
usually.
Great. And well, nothing ever works 100% of the
Right.
time. So I think like one of the boundaries is like giving yourself some grace.
Yeah.
You're doing really, really well, and then you mess up and you spend on $300 at Amazon. Well, you did, but now it's time to get back on. I use the analogy of finances and like dieting, I guess, or health a lot, because you're great. You just lost 10 pounds and you just ate 3 cupcakes. Should you just continue to eat cupcakes all the time? Or should you say, you know what? Probably shouldn't have done that, but I did. Too late. Now tomorrow I'm going to have a better day. So you need to do the same thing with finances. You can't just be so upset with yourself if you do sort of overspend at a time, or, you know, you buy something you shouldn't buy. But I think one thing I see people do that is unhelpful is actually try to set goals too early. So when I'm working with folks, we don't goal set on session 1, 2, 3, and we might start with 4. Because you need to have a realistic understanding of where your money's going and where you really want your money to go. Because it's very easy just to say, oh, well, my goal is to pay off this debt in the next year. Do you even know if that's like, can you even do
Realistic?
that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that realistic? Do you know what that's going to mean? Do you know how much you're going to have to put on that? And do you know what you're going to have to give up for that? And do you even know what you're spending your money on? Because most people don't. I send out sort of a pre-survey when folks first start working with me and ask them questions like, within like $100 or $200, do you know how much you spend on groceries, or do you know how much you spend on fun and entertainment? And most people say, no, I have no idea. So give yourself, like, if you're just really starting this journey and you're really like, okay, I want to like pay off my debt and I want to get better and all that stuff, don't put too many goals or pressure on yourself right now. Start really taking a step back, creating a budget, tracking your spending. And then once you track your spending, then you can be realistic about what your goal is. So as an example, I just talked with a client yesterday and they spent $1,100 on like going out to eat in the month of September. So they still had a little bit of time left, and I think their initial budget was $600 because they just like, that's probably what we spend. Well, they were way over. And then the husband of the couple was like, well, I want to spend no more than like $250. And I'm like, and the wife is like, it's not going to happen. And even I was like, that's very significant to go from $1,100 to $250. That may not be super realistic. So let's start a little smaller than that and allow ourselves to see like how we're feeling. Because we don't want to be so strict like I was and not enjoy our lives and be miserable for years. But we don't want to constantly be overspending and then also still be miserable because you're still stressed and anxious. So we need to just be able to set very realistic goals. And in order to do that, you can't really do that right away. You've got to see what your budget is. You've got to see what you're spending your money on, tracking your spending, and then also getting a little bit of a handle on your mindset and making sure that's in the right place so that you're feeling the motivation to reach your goals.
That's great advice. We'll be right back with Rachel. That's a Hard No is brought to you by Clever Girl Marketing, my full-service agency specializing in smart, strategic marketing solutions for businesses and nonprofits. Okay, so you're probably wondering, Heather, what's with the podcast about boundaries? Why not marketing? Well, maybe in the future, but for now, it actually does relate, so bear with me here. Smart marketing, strategic marketing, requires knowing what to say no to and why. Businesses and nonprofits get inundated with marketing options and offers every day. We help you cut through all that noise, focus on your specific needs, and develop actionable strategies that are doable and actually make sense. Whether it's websites, SEO, email, social, or traditional channels, we're experienced in all of it. So if you need help figuring out your marketing, visit our website, clevergrowmarketing.com, and get in touch. So Rachel, let's talk about budgets.
Yeah.
Okay. So you sort of touched on why we want to set them. And I think we all kind of know why, but you can elaborate on that.
Yeah.
But then, like, how do you go about it?
Yeah. I think, let's talk about the why a little bit, because a lot of people think like setting a budget means, it means I never can spend any money again. I have to restrict what I'm spending. And that's not what a budget is. A budget is a piece of paper with numbers on it. So it can't tell you what to do or what not to do.
It doesn't judge you.
It does not judge you at all. It's literally an inanimate object. So it's not telling, if it's telling you something, then, there's other
We
people
got
you
other
should talk
issues.
to.
Yeah.
But so it's giving you information, and it is now putting you in charge of your spending. So what happens when I first meet with people, or just when I'm even just chatting with people in general, they often say, I don't really know where my money's going. I don't honestly really know how much I spent. Like I mentioned, my client didn't know how much they were spending on going out to eat. So if you don't know, how can you make decisions that are really like great and realistic and positive for your life? So you want to create a budget, because he is literally doing the opposite of what a lot of people think, is putting you in control of that money. So now you know where everything's going, and you can make some good informed decisions. The how is truly different, right? What works for you may not work for me and vice versa. But my recommendation is if you're just getting started, that you use a very simple spreadsheet. With my clients, I use Google Sheets and I share it with them, and it's very simple. But you want to make sure you include a few things on there. So a lot of people are just like, oh, my mortgage and my utility bills and my income. So you need to have a tab that, of course, is your expenses and your income. That's sort of the crux of the budget. But just make sure you're including everything. I sometimes meet with somebody, and on our 4th or 5th session, they mentioned Disney Plus, and I was like, that's not in your budget. How much is that? And they're like, oh, I didn't think that was that much. Because it was only $10.
And there's cell phone and car
Oh,
and
yes.
clothes and
Yeah. And I put haircuts in there because a lot of people are like, it's just not something that's top of mind, you know? So I encourage you to put everything on your spreadsheet on your budget, even if it's, you have a $2 subscription to some app or something. Put it on your spreadsheet, because if you don't have all the information, again, you're not making the best decisions. So put it all on there, everything. And then another tab is for your savings. So it should be the bank accounts that you have, the interest rate that you're earning, and how much is in there. And then on that tab, you can set some goals. So again, don't set goals immediately, but after you get some organization done, you can put some goals on that spreadsheet, and then you can track your progress. Another tab on the budget spreadsheet should be for your debt. And that is, again, similar to the savings, where you put the name, your interest rate, your total balance, and then your minimum payment. That's what I recommend, because when you see it all, then you can make the right decision about like what you should be doing with some of that. But right now you might just be throwing a little bit here or there, and you feel like you're not getting anywhere, and it's probably because you don't have a strategic plan for that. So put all that on there. And then I have another tab on mine for variable income, in case you are an entrepreneur or you have a side hustle or something, and you might make, some kind of random money here or there, and it's not a regular paycheck. That's a whole separate thing that would take forever to talk about. But, if you do have variable income, there is a way to track it. Then the only other thing I would include is any overflow income that you have. So that is, I'm getting a tax return, I'm getting a bonus from work, I'm getting some type of inheritance or something like that is coming your way. Not everybody might have that. But if you do, it's important to put that on there and plan ahead for it. Because this is what I hear regularly is people are like, yeah, I got a $1,000 bonus, and frankly, I really have no idea what it even bought me. I just know it's not here anymore.
Oh, isn't that the truth?
Yes.
You get the bonus
the
and
time.
it goes right into the checking account.
Yep. Just goes
And then
right in
3
there.
months later, you're like, where'd all that money go?
Yep. Very, very common. So if you're listening out there and this is you, very common. Happens all the time. So I recommend people pre-plan that. So that you typically don't just come across $1,000 lying on the ground. So you typically know if you're getting some type of a lump sum of cash that's extra. So plan it. Decide what you want to do with it. And it can be something as simple as putting it on your debt or putting it in your savings, or it could be buying something. It does not matter. What matters is what you really want to do with it.
Be mindful about it.
Yes, be mindful. Because when you plan to do something and then you do it, you feel really great about it.
Right.
That helps build your confidence, and you're not like, I don't know where it went. Like, that doesn't feel good to say, I don't know where my money went. So I would include, so the budget is a little bit more robust, I think, than maybe what some people think of it as, at least for me. I like to make sure you're just having, this is your full financial picture. This is not just, a few things that I spend money on in my income. It's really your financial picture. And again, I just use a simple spreadsheet. So there are apps out there you can use. I think.
But some of those cost money.
First of all, I've never found one that's free that is worth anything. Right. But it's also, it's not as impactful as when you're first getting started by using just a spreadsheet. So if you've been budgeting for the last 10 years, sure, go get an app. It doesn't matter. I'm sure that'll fit your lifestyle just fine. But if you're getting started, putting more of the work into it is really way more impactful.
You're really touching the numbers.
Yes,
you're really touching it, and you're
going in there and changing
and
things.
you're seeing it and feeling it. And
other than something just kind of doing it for you.
So I love that you pointed out the little things, right? So I'm a huge reader. Every night I read at least half an hour. It's kind of what puts me to sleep. And I read for pleasure. So I read for work, and I read for the podcast, and I read for pleasure. So I'm constantly reading. And ebooks that I buy cost $3.99, $5.99. So sometimes if I really splurge, it's $12.99 if it's a new one, And I just never really thought about it. I was just doing it, and they were going. The receipts were going to an email I never look at. I call it the black hole to infinity. And that's my junk mail email, right? And then one day, my husband came to me and he was like, "Can we talk about this for a minute?" He's like, "Are you aware how much you've spent on books?" I was literally not, and he showed me the total, and it just took my breath
Yeah.
away. I was like, "Oh, oh my God!" So guess who got all the library apps?
Yeah. Yep.
And it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And sometimes if there's a newer book and I have to
Yeah.
wait 6 weeks or whatever, it's okay. It actually ends up coming through sooner than I think, and I
Right.
read it and I'm fine. And there's a million other books I can read, and I love libraries. I'm
Yeah.
always pushing libraries. But and then when I do spend the $12.99 on the really new book that I really want by an author who isn't maybe in the library, then I treasure it even more,
Yeah.
and I feel
Yeah.
fine about it because I haven't wasted all this other money.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah. So the other thing about like sort of tracking your spending, which we haven't really talked too much about, but tracking your spending is so important, is that then you can just make the right decisions. You could have looked at that and said, yeah, I know I spend that
deal.
much and I don't care because it's important to me and that's
Yeah.
what I want to do. Great. Or you could have looked at that and said, oh my gosh,
holy cow.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
And then you can make decisions from there, which what you did.
Mhm.
So budgeting and getting your sort of financial health together is not about pinching pennies and never spending another dollar. It's about just making sure you're spending their money where you want to spend it and not just sort of mindlessly buying things without recognizing and then saying things like, I really wish that we could go on a nice vacation this year, but we don't have the money. Well, maybe you do have the money. You're just, you haven't put together your sort of their financial picture yet to see where your money's going and where you maybe could cut back to save for that vacation if that's really what you want. And that's a big, big thing that I help my clients with is what are your values? Like, where do you want to spend your money? Where would make you happiest to be able to spend your money? And then where are you spending your money right now? And are those things aligning and are they adding up? And are where you're spending your money helping you reach sort of these goals of where you want to? Or are they colliding with each other and your spending is actually not allowing you to sort of reach some of these goals and values and the exciting things that you want to spend money on? And then if they're colliding, then that's when we got a little bit of work to do, just kind of figure out where it's going. And then you can make some of those choices and say, well, if I choose to do the library and I'm only spending $13 on books every month instead of $100, well, that's $90 that I can put towards a vacation. And so, but again, if you're not really like sitting down and thinking about it, it's just on sort of autopilot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's talk about debt.
Okay.
Is debt bad?
So how you feel about your debt is what's way more important than actually having debt is the first thing. Okay. I'm all about how you're feeling. If you're like, who cares? Don't give a crap. I'm enjoying my life, having fun, and you truly feel that way, well, you have to live your life. So if you're happy, great. Do I want my clients to have debt? No, of course not. Like because when you have debt, you're literally throwing money away by the interest that you have that you're paying. So and unfortunately for most people, they do feel a lot of stress and anxiety over debt. And sometimes what happens is when you spend money, your dopamine levels rise and you feel really happy.
In that moment.
Yep, in that moment. Exactly, in that moment. Unfortunately, that does not last very long. But then what happens is a week later, you look at your debt again and you're like, oh my gosh, and you feel very stressed out. And you're like, oh, I remember when I bought that thing last week on Amazon. It made me feel good. I'm going to do that again. And even if you're not fully recognizing this, that's what's going on in your brain. So, and then you just add to your debt. So for most folks, debt is a stressful topic for them and they would like to get rid of it. And so it's not all bad though, because for an example, for those folks that got a college degree and now are doing the job that they love and would never have been able to do it without that, would you go back and not get that college degree, even knowing that you would still be paying off your debt? Probably not. I mean, it probably was worth it to you to do that. Or, for someone who took maybe a gap year at some point and took an amazing trip to Europe for 3 months, do they regret doing that? There's a chance that they don't. Or like buying your house, like if you live in your dream house or even not your dream house, but just a lovely home that is great and you've got a great backyard and you love being there. Do you regret buying that? Probably not. So no, not all debt is bad, but it's the high interest credit card debt that you're not even really sure how it got there,
Yeah.
that's what's not so great. Like those are the things we really want to focus on. Because you are just throwing your money away with all the interest and you're not even sure. It was just a bunch of little things, or maybe a couple big things and then a bunch of little things that all added up to it. And you don't really feel like you have anything to show for it. So we do want to get a handle on that and get a plan. So I mentioned earlier, like, some people might just be throwing a little bit here, a little bit there, and they feel like they're not getting anywhere. And it may be because they really don't have a good plan. So do you want to sort of go through my thoughts of like how to pay off debt if you have
Absolutely. But I also wanted to interject a point in that sometimes, like, I have a business and sometimes there are cash flow issues. And so I have, my line of credits and things like that. And so to me, and also I have been working for over 25 years to improve my credit score.
Okay.
And so I have switched my mindset to look at debt as a tool
Okay. Yeah.
to help improve my credit score, become more financially responsible, and ensure cash flow, so that I can keep my company stable, right?
Okay.
And that's only happened a few times here and there, but like it's nice to have that as a backup kind of thing. So that's how I've changed my mindset, and because of that, I think I'm way more responsible about paying things off.
Yeah.
So I think it can be used as a tool if you're careful about what kind of debt you have and how you go about it. So yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. So in this whole conversation, we're just going to be talking about high interest credit card debt. We're not going to be talking about like a home loan or a
Student
low,
loans.
Those things are usually not as much high interest, and a lot of people just have those because they're expensive and most people can't just go buy a house.
But a lot of
when they
people
want
did get into trouble over the pandemic, especially just buying online and putting things on credit cards.
Correct. If you have multiple different credit cards, which a lot of folks do, with a balance, you really want to go back to that budget and make sure that's filled out correctly. So you want to have the name of the card or the name of the bank or whatever, your interest rate, your total balance, and then your minimum payments. And not what you're paying, because some people pay a little bit more than the minimum. So literally, when you're putting that spreadsheet together, what is your actual minimum payment? Put all of that together. Then my recommendation, there's a couple different ways to pay off debt. There's no necessarily like this is what's right and this is what's wrong. But for most people, it feels very daunting to look at, let's just say $50,000 and think, how am I ever going to pay that off? So we're going to break it down, right? So we're going to make sure that they're all in different line items, and we're going to start small, because what most people need is that motivation. So if you start with a credit card, say you have 4 credit cards and 3 are fairly low balances and one is $25,000. If you start with that $25,000, it's going to take you a lot longer to pay that off. So you might lose steam at some point. So my recommendation is to do what is called the snowball method. And to start with a smaller balance. Now, if your smallest balance is a 6% interest rate and your next smallest is a 25% interest rate, don't do the 6%. But go with maybe like look at the 2 that are the smallest and go with the one of those 2 that has the higher interest rate, and make sure you're making the minimum payments on every single thing that you have except for that one. You're going to focus on one at a time. You're not going to put $5 extra on every single one of your cards. You're going to put everything you can on that one card. So if your minimum payment's $100 and you know that you've got an extra $100, then you're going to put $200 on that card every single month until it gets paid off. Or, here or there, if you get a bonus or you have, something else that comes and you have a little bit of extra money, great, put it on there. But we're not putting a little bit here and a little bit there. It takes way longer to make a difference. So we're going to work on that one. We're going to pick the one that is the lowest and also, has a decently high interest rate. Once that's paid off, then we're going to the next lowest one, and we're going to take that minimum payment and we're going to add the $200 that you were putting on that other one. We're going to make that as your payment. So now your payment might be $300 for that card, and you're going to keep doing that until it's all paid off.
So you're going to keep paying the same amount, but you're just going to be applying it to different.
Right.
That's cool.
So some people, like, in fact, I was just meeting with a client last week, and they were like, well, we don't really pay the minimum payments. Like, we put a little bit extra on every single one of our cards. And I said, well, the first thing I want you to do is go back and change your auto payments to what the minimum payment is. Don't pay anything over except for on that one. So they figured out they were spending, I forget, it was like $60 or something over the minimum payments. Well, then take that $60 and add it to that minimum payment of that one that we're really going to be focusing on. Because you're going to focus on the one, that way it gets paid off, and that way you feel good. And you're like, yes, I got this. I completed something. I've accomplished something. Then you can start working on the next one. And it just continues to build that motivation. And then once you get to sort of the highest one, you've already have so much of it paid off that you're feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah, yeah. And in the meantime, try not to rack up more.
And in the meantime, yes, that is extremely important, because there's honestly, like, there's really no point in paying off your debt if you're just continuing to accrue it. So you mentioned, like, when you go to the big box stores and you make sure you don't get a
I
cart.
hold things with every finger. Yeah.
I think it's important for folks to recognize what their pain points are as far as credit cards. And if it is in-store shopping, if it's Amazon, it's a little more challenging. But if it's in-store shopping, take cash with you. Don't take your credit cards with you. Leave them at home. Say, I am allowing myself to spend $75 at the store. I'm cool with that. No problem. Because when that cash is in your hand and you fork over $5 and then you set aside the 10 for this thing, you're like, whoa, maybe I don't need this thing, you know,
Right.
because it's,
You see how much faster it adds up than you think.
And
Yeah.
it's amazing that people forget that cash spends just as much as credit cards do, but people just forget, like, oh, you can still use cash.
It reminds
these
me
days.
of when I was in college, and it'd be like, put everything on the conveyor belt, and I was like, okay, I don't really
Yeah.
need this box of mac and cheese. I
Yeah.
don't really need that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry, can you put that back, please?
Yeah. But cash spends just as well
Right.
these days.
And then there's no interest.
And there's no interest.
Yeah.
And it makes you think differently about money, because it's so easy to just swipe that card because you don't see it.
Yeah.
It's not there in front of you. It
Right.
hasn't
It's
immediately
painless.
came out, right, until the bill comes, which could be literally 30 days from that time. So you've
Right.
forgotten all about it by then.
Right.
So yeah, cash is, again, it's not for everybody, but just for those folks that are like really challenged by going to some stores and they recognize they buy things that they do not at all need, and they want to start cutting back on that, my recommendation is to start using cash in
I
those
like
places.
that.
Yeah.
How do we set boundaries around the online spending?
Yeah, that is challenging, but I will say there's a couple things. One is you can actually save money by online shopping if you're doing it the right way, because there's less window shopping. Do you go on
That's
Amazon
true. It's more targeted,
and just
right?
like search for stuff? No, if you want to buy a book or whatever, then you go on and you get that.
Or like, I want a new light bulb. I don't know.
Right.
Right? You look for that specific thing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. That's
so
true.
actually, during 2020, we actually saved money because I wasn't going to big box store to buy toilet paper. I was going on Amazon, and so I was just typing in toilet paper, and it's not as fun to window shop online. You have to almost make like a list. Like, these are the things I need, and these are the things I want, and can I, like, and you need to go back and look at your budget and say, well, can I do that? And the other thing to think about, and I think this is really impactful, is that every single time you spend money on something, you're not spending money on something else.
Yeah.
Every single time you spend money on something, you're not spending it on something else. It's just like your time. Like, every time you decide
Yep.
to do something with your time, you're not spending your time doing something else.
Right. We
So-
talk about that with boundaries all the time. If
Yes.
you say yes to this,
Yes.
then you're not leaving an opportunity for this
Exactly.
other thing.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to, like, make sure that if you're spending your money on this thing, that is what you really want to be spending your money on. So when I'm doing the work with my clients, I'm constantly reminding them of, like, what their why is. Like, why
Yeah.
are you doing this work? Because you have to think of that in that moment. Well, I really want this. I want it. But wait a minute. Why am I even considering not buying it? Oh, right. It's because my partner and I have been dying to go to Ireland, and we've been doing a really great job saving up some money, but we're not quite there yet. That's why I shouldn't buy this. So you have to, like, remind yourself and remember, if I buy this, it means I'm not spending that money on something else. And what am I giving up? Remind yourself, what am I giving up? And maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's totally the thing you want to buy. Great, you should buy it. But maybe you're giving up an extra $50 in your savings account because you are saving up for that trip to Ireland. Like, you just have to always, and this is why I recommend an accountability partner, whether it's a professional or a friend or your partner or whatever, but somebody to go to and say, I really want this. I don't know what to do. Or someone to just talk about it and say, I was reminded as to what my why was. Because sometimes it's not as helpful just to talk to yourself about it. It's
Yeah.
good to talk about it with other people.
So one of the other things we talk about with boundaries sometimes is take a pause, right? you don't necessarily have to say yes in the moment. You can say, let me think about it.
Yeah.
So it's spending. One of the habits I started, I don't know why I started, is instead of saying, yeah, I want to buy it, I just like it. Whatever
Okay.
app you're in, you can add it to a wish list or a
Yeah.
list of things you like. You can even categorize them or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I just put it in there.
Yeah.
And you can do that to your heart's content. You don't have to spend any money doing that.
Right.
And then I go back like a month later, and half those things I'm like, nah,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't really
Yep.
need, it's just garbage. I don't need that. And if I still want it, it's something I really, really like, and okay, then I feel better about getting
Yep.
it. So
Yep. And you can even put things in your cart.
yeah,
Put it in your cart.
absolutely. Yeah.
Walk away.
Well, there's on Amazon too. There's like the cart, and then you can do save for later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I have
there's-
like 11 billion things in there.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
they email me and they're like,
Yeah.
so
Right.
there's a price drop. Do you
right,
want it?
right.
And I'm like, no, I'm still good.
Yeah. Or did you forget about this item in your cart? Don't forget.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would at least wait 24 hours, especially with online shopping, because it's so
Yeah.
easy to do. You
Yeah.
don't have to go anywhere. So yeah, put something in your cart, put something on your wish list or whatever, and then walk away and come
Yeah.
back the next day and say, is this something I still really want?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just want people to remember what your values are and what you really want to be spending your money on, and is your spending helping you to
Right.
sort of reach that goal of where you want to be spending your money on.
So what I think I'm hearing you say is it's okay to spend money.
Correct.
You just have to be mindful about where you're spending it and feel good about where you're spending it and make sure you're in alignment with where you want your life to go.
Yes.
Yeah.
And lastly, if this is the last, I could talk forever and ever. So,
Sure.
is don't do things or spend money on things because you think that that's what you should be doing or should be spending your money on, or what you see your neighbor spending money on,
Right.
or what your friends are spending
Or you
money
see it
on.
on Instagram.
Right, exactly. Do things that you want to do. I don't care if you want to spend your life savings by going to Starbucks for coffee every single day. If that is what makes you happy, who cares that other people might tell you that's a waste of money? It's not a waste of money to you. So like me, my sort of why is vacations. We like to travel. That's what we like to do. Well, I have another friend that just doesn't really care about doing that. And that's fine. Like she shouldn't be spending her money on that. So everybody's different. Be who you are. Just trust yourself and know if this is what you really want to do, then that's what you should do. Don't worry about other people. You have to live your life.
I love it.
Yeah.
Rachel, where can people find you?
So my business is Effortless Budgeting, and I am effortlessbudgeting.com is my website. And then from there, you can look at my social media accounts. I've got Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks so much. I'm sure we'll have you back sometime because
I would love it.
I mean, we could have a million conversations about money, I'm sure. So thanks again for coming on. It's been great. And everybody, make sure you follow Rachel. And
Yeah, I
Thanks
love
again.
it. All right. Thanks, Heather.
That's a hard no.